Thanks, Richard. Hello, everybody. Hope you're all well on this nice spring day. It's coming. Lockdown is coming to an end soon, so hopefully we'll all get out and have some fun. Anyway, my name's Brian Dawe. I'm the CEO of Safe Regeneration, which is a community business based in Bootle. And I'll probably start by telling you that I left school when I was 15 with no qualifications. Leave is like a loose term. I was asked to kind of leave a little bit, kind of, but I didn't take any exams, so I left school with absolutely no qualifications. And my first job was on a building site as a roofer. So that's kind of me early kind of history. But one thing I've always done is I've always played music. I've always been involved, and so that has been and still is a big part of my life. And so that took me all over Europe playing, and I lived in London for a little while, and then I came back from London, and I bumped into a few of my old mates, and they were pretty fed up because there was a lot of money coming into Liverpool at the time to help us regenerate the city, but it felt like that people from outside in suits were just kind of creating reports of what the problems were and leaving reports and leaving us. So we organised ourselves as a group of artists and creative people and musicians to begin to work in our community to do stuff, whether it be organised gigs or create pieces of artwork, public artworks, or just anything creative, drama, theatre, just to engage. And we used art as a way of creating conversation and gathering people, so we had some momentum. So then we had a voice. Once you start organising people, you come together. You're representative of a community, and you have much more power than saying, this is me and I believe this. But as a group of people, if you organise yourselves and challenge any issues, you're in a far stronger position to be able to be taken seriously. So Safe is it's like me baby. I set it up 20 years ago to do all those things. And for the longest time, we created public artworks, mosaics and ceramics and those kind of things in schools and hospitals, in mental institutions. I've worked in Ashworth. That was an experience. And I've done all kinds of different things with housing associations, creating pieces of artwork as part of new developments. So we've developed an understanding of how that sector works, what is now like what I understand to be the third sector, as it's called. So that kind of encompasses charities, social enterprises, community businesses, all those kind of things that have got a social purpose. So they do things as a business, but there's also some social value, or there's trying to overcome some sort of social issue. So that's what Safe kind of does. It's part of a piece of work that we did in Bootle on the canal. We moved up there temporarily into an old school, and that school, we're only supposed to be there for 6 months. I'm using it as a space to create these pieces of artworks. Then the credit crunch came, and then all developers that were looking to buy the land to turn it into housing scattered. And whilst they were counting how much money they lost, we turned it into what is now like a hub, a community and cultural hub. And there's 13 other businesses set up in there. 12 of those businesses, we've helped people set up their own business. Because what kind of happened was people came to us and said, how did you do this? Where did you get the money from to do this? I work with ceramics, so I want to kind of do the same kind of thing. So we started helping people informally to set up their own businesses. And then we realized there's something in this. We know what we're doing. We're really good at it. So I went for a business advisor qualification and a couple of other people in the team. And so now we do that formally. We provide support to people to set up their own businesses as part of our paid work, because you can address social issues through your work, but you have to look after yourself first, and you have to raise your own. That's my job. I have to raise my wages every day and the team around me. So I'm constantly looking for new opportunities and commissions to bring in money to pay salaries to do the work that we do. So we bought that school. I think it's about it's like 8 years ago now, with a loan from the high street, because we know typically the story of artists is they go to places which are really a bit shitty. No one else wants to be in because it's cheap to be there. And then when they make an impact, they make a change, as they've done in Baltic Triangle, they all get kind of moved along because the developers come and see the potential, see the profits to be made, and they move people on. So we knew that story. So we were dead keen to be able to buy the school. And that was kind of a big part of the organisation. Grew up a lot then, because as I've described, up until then we were creating, mosaics and artworks and such. But we didn't have any real stakeholder. We didn't have a kind of premises. And once we organised and to purchase the premises, we had, a strong presence, and no one could move us on. No one could tell us that we shouldn't be there or couldn't be there. So we're the landowners. So within the school I've described, there's 30 other social enterprises or creative businesses, and they range from filmmakers to ceramicists. There's a recording studio. There's a brewery as well. There's a decent sized brewery. There's a couple of carpenters, makers that make things, creative things. What else is the artist, as you'd imagine? There's also an engraver, and there's all sorts of different stuff. And so we all work together now to develop projects to service our community and work with groups that need a bit of help and a bit of support. But again, we've still used those creative skills to engage with people. A funny thing happened just about 6 years ago. Just across the way from us, from the school that we bought, the pub shut down, and our community was saying to us, this is really important. If we lose the pub, we're going to lose, a real important connection point. Can't you do something about it? Don't you do stuff like that? But we managed to raise some money from the lottery, and we bought a pub. So we own and run and manage a community pub, which at the time, or if you had asked me previously, did I want to open a pub in Bootle, I would have said absolutely not. It's probably the last thing I would have wanted to do. But it's definitely the best thing we've done. We sell the beer that we brew in the school as well. So our carbon footprint is pretty low, that we just roll the barrels of beer over the car park into the pub. But what it's become a venue for music and for theatre, and it's also became the catalyst for the music festival, which has been really successful. In 2019, we had 6,000 people over 2 days. This year, we've got performers coming from all over Europe. What did today? 2nd and 3rd of July. So basically, what we just do what we want. We just develop projects that we like to see and that local people are interested in developing. But the main skill that I've got is finding money and being able to convince funders or commissioners or whoever to give us that money to be able to deliver a project that has some social value, because there's a lot of kind of support out there financially to deliver projects of social value. So as I say, we're really good at coming up with stupid ideas and then finding money to do it. That's probably the strap line I should use a lot. But there's one thing I should say about myself. I know what I'm not good at. So, and I'm also good at finding people to work with that understand what we're trying to achieve, using their skills to achieve what we want to, because you can't do nothing on your own. And the more that you collaborate with people and the more that you develop your partnerships, the more you can do. It's always a challenge working with new people, but that's a really part of what we do. So we've also developed something which is even bigger than stupider. It's a record. It's the biggest and stupidest thing I've ever developed in my time as yet. We started to imagine what a new neighbourhood would look like on the canal, because we're right on a canal as well. So there's a canoe club that runs out to the pub. That's a really important part of what we do. We started to imagine what a neighbourhood would be like if we could create a neighbourhood that would have safe and it'd have all those artists doing the things that we do. It would have somewhere for people to live. So we looked at affordable housing, and it would also have somewhere where older people could live, but not in a nursing home and not in isolation, as part of a community. And then we began to imagine what the pub would really be like if we got some money to invest in that. But we imagined a hotel, the micro B&B right next door, and we also imagined that the pub would have a restaurant and an eatery in it. So we've spent the last 6 years developing that project. That project's called Destination Bootle, if you want to check that out. And it has all those things that we kind of imagined. But whilst we were developing this scheme, we constantly spoke with our community about what they felt the important things were. So we have something that's called a stakeholder membership. So we have 170 local people that we constantly check back and forth with, whether we're on the right track, whether we're doing the things that we should be doing, and whether the things that we're doing are lacking in some areas. And so people constantly tell us what they want. That's one thing about people in Bootle, they'll tell you what they want. Don't worry about that. Sure. The first plan, actually, we were supposed to demolish the pub and rebuild a new one right on the side of the canal, but it was uproar. That's our pub. You can't knock that down. We're happy. So the pub now is definitely part of the plans for the redevelopment. So we've just put in a planning application for all that to happen, which cost the best part of £1 million to pull all that together. And we had a team of 15 people, and they had architects and planning consultants and acousticians, structural engineers, a full raft of people that you need to bring in, and the expertise that you need to develop a scheme. The cost of that scheme is £38 million, and it has all those things that I've talked about. It has 101 homes, 80 bed extra care. It has the new hub, and the best thing about it, in my opinion, is that there's no fossil fuel on site at all. All of the energy on site is geothermal. That means we drop equipment into the ground that takes the temperature from the ground that would provide the heating for everything on site. And then we also introduced solar PV onto all the roofs, and because there's an apartment block, we used the solar PV on the apartment block that would charge electric cars. And as part of the development, we wanted 5 electric car pools, so you could hire a car anytime you wanted. Because of the climate emergency and whatnot, we felt it was absolutely essential. If we were going to develop a scheme, it would need to be future-proof, and it would need to have all those things that would make it uber sustainable and low carbon. So that's the way we've approached it. As I said, we literally let's dream of our amazing, the most amazing place that you could develop, and all those things that were important to it as part of the scheme. Unfortunately, we got refused on that planning application, but we've had some legal advice, and we've got a strong case for appeal. That's probably where most of my time is at the minute, is working with professionals to find a way through this planning issue, and to also find the money to build it. We've got promises from different loanees and different grants for us to build our housing. So we're fairly confident once we get planning, it'll just roll on, and we'll begin to build out as soon as we can. So what's my typical day look like? There is no typical day, to be honest. One day I can be involved in creating a musical. That's part of me. That's because I work with a lot of other musicians, and we're creating a musical now that will tour across Europe. Because that's a lot of stuff we do. Is we travel abroad a lot and share our thinking and our learning in different cities across the world. I was in Brazil a couple of years ago. That was amazing in Rio. Just talking about, as I am now talking about the things that we do and how we approach our work. So, as I said before, in a typical day, I can be just like literally scanning for money, developing partnerships in ways that will bring in resource, talking to local people, bringing local people in, and I have to do that in the pub sometimes. So it's it's not a bad job. But you might have seen that we also have an open mic every week, and so I try and kind of, because I get bored that easy, as you can see, so I have to have lots of different things to do all the time, which in some ways it can be, you can make yourself busier than you want to be, but then I'm always busy, which is okay. So Richard sent me a few little questions that I try and float around as well. So that's probably the fun part of my job, is working with people and being able to connect the things that I'm really passionate about art and music, with the development of the community. I love I love seeing people meet the potential. That's my biggest kick that I get. Because sometimes we get people coming into Safe, maybe just wanting to volunteer, maybe wanting to get involved in creating the gardens or looking after the chickens, because we do all weird stuff just to keep people involved. So I love seeing people come in with some hopes and dreams, and then helping them people to kind of to do that. That's the biggest kick that I get. And so in terms of advice and wanting to get into this sector, other than don't do it, it's a nightmare. It's not that bad. If you've got something about you, if you've got a passion for making change or making people's lives better, this is the sector for you. You're probably best thinking about, there's not many courses you can do. There's not much awareness in terms of universities and such about this type of work, which is shocking, because in terms of the third sector, they call it, there's private sector, public sector, and the third sector is, as I described before, charities and community business and whatnot. Probably the best way to get involved is beginning to volunteer in places like that. But seek out those opportunities if it's something that you're interested in. Look at the work that charities do. Look at the work that the community businesses do. And there's another term that's kind of emerging, because the language constantly changes in this line of work. And socially trading organisations is another term that's being used recently. So you can seek out those opportunities, and you can play a role in an administrative way or a project development way. They're all about kind of the role that I do. There's lots of different ways you can get involved in the sector and be part of change, if that's something that kind of really floats your boat. And as I mentioned before, if it's about the environment, it would tend to be within the third sector where that lobbying happens. If it's about art, it tends to be within the sector. And if it's about social and well-being and health, a lot of that work is done within the third sector. So there's lots of ways avenues that you can develop your skills in within the third sector. Because as you can imagine, the pub closed. We got some grant to help us kind of keep staff on. But what we did, we turned the pub into a food bank donation station. So the staff have got involved in helping the food bank, because the food bank source was based in Safe up until Christmas. It's now moved because it got bigger, which is fantastic. So our work kind of shifted towards helping food banks a lot. A lot of our work's now gone on online, as you can imagine. We're all pretty much working remotely. We keep a skeleton team within Safe, but yeah, that's how we've adapted. It's going to take a while for us to get back to normal. But you know what? I was thinking before, as it happened, and organisationally, we're probably in the strongest place we've ever been. And if it would have happened a couple of years earlier, there's a good chance we might have not made it through. Because as you can imagine, a lot of the social enterprises within the building, they couldn't afford to pay the rent anymore. So we either said, keep on paying your rent, we don't care where you get it from, or we said, okay, let's have a rent freeze until we can get to a place where we're all in a better place. And that's what we did. We just said, stop paying your rent, and then that went to half rent. But as I said, we're dead fortunate in that that we're in a very stable position as it hit. But a couple of years earlier, might have made it, to be honest.
The presentation was great. I think I've sort of seen the name Destination Bootle floating around on LinkedIn and not really known that much about it. So I think to kind of learn a little bit more has been really interesting and sort of really inspiring, because I didn't know stuff like that was going on in the city. So that's really good. I suppose my question, like I recently set up my own business, and I'm sort of really interested in the self-initiation of projects.
Mm-hmm.
So I wondered, is there any sort of criteria or any sort of, like, do you just get approached with ideas? Do you regularly kind of chat with people and try and brainstorm? Like, what's the process in kind of self-initiating something like that?
That's a good question. As I said before, I'm pretty good at coming up with stupid ideas. But what the way I approach it, I kind of develop projects in a way of collecting building blocks all day. That's what I do. I collect ideas, collect knowledge of where the funding is, and I collect kind of partners. And so when you get like the funding works right, the idea works with that partner, that's how you kind of, so you're constantly mining for those three elements of projects. It's, you know, it's a skill that you develop in terms of what are going to be successful and what isn't. But we've got two rules in SAFE. And one rule is whatever you do doesn't impact negatively upon anyone else. And as long as it's cool, let's get on with it. Because, you know, as you can imagine, in the space that we're in, and having 13 different organisations, we're constantly kind of coming up with nutty stuff. Some stuff we put on the shelf until the fund comes along or the right partner comes along, or, you know, obviously sometimes funding will come up and you go, what can we do with that? But then I try and avoid developing projects to funding, because then you're kind of trying to shoehorn stuff in. So there's always a kind of reflection of where the need is for us in terms of socially. And when I say need, it might be we just need to have a good time. We just need to do something really good for everyone to enjoy. That's a need. That's okay. And it might be more complex in terms of health needs and support with mental health and stuff. So that's the general kind of just collect your building blocks constantly, source them, mine those kind of three elements: funding, partners, and ideas.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much.
Are you welcome, Jamie? Thanks for the question.